journey. So we are on this Saturday's session, and hmm, so last week we discussed about how this ignorance causes the suffering. We will go a little deeper by understanding first the Shanti mantra, Asato ma satgamaya. Asatoma. You see, the simple meaning is lead me from false to the real. Now we have to think and contemplate if the real is absent. That is why I am saying I have to create the real in order to move to the real, or it is veiled, it is hidden by the false. Think of it. So we are going to understand and define clearly what exactly is ignorance. What is understanding? I told you that understanding is cause and effect, and that results into the knowledge. The real is present, the false causes the absence of the real, absence of the knowledge of the real. Did you get it? We are going deeper. That's what I told you. If you are attending all these sessions and contemplating and reflecting, then it becomes. This is remote. Where is the remote? I don't see the remote. So we are talking of the ignorance means it is hided by the ignorance. It is not the absence of the remote. You leave you leave your smartphone at your home. That is a different thing. But you have a smartphone in your pocket and you say where it is, I don't see it. Now apply the same. I am the real self, I don't see it. I have a lot of stress, I don't see it. Who does it? Ego. Ego, delusion, habit, past impressions, they veil the real self. That is the meaning of asato ma satgamaya. In yoga classes, we simply say, oh, let us take a deep breath, asato ma satgamaya. And even in deep breath, ignorance continues. So it does not work that way. It does not work that way. We have to understand it clearly. This is what the master is saying. Same thing. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. That is why the master says, I have to purify the mind. I have no distraction. I am sitting calmly with awareness and attention. I am listening to the teacher, and it clicks to me immediately. It clicks. Oh, you are right. So, ignorance is not a lack of knowledge. Knowledge is hidden. Knowledge is hidden. Let me give you another example. You are agitated and I pat in your shoulder. Calm down, I will talk to you. And you calm down. So here, patting calms to you down, or the peace is already there. You have to understand this clearly. Is peace there? So I patting you on your shoulder brings the peace. Peace is already there. Happiness is already there. Are you getting it? Say yes, even if you don't get it, you can listen to it again. Understand it clearly. That is why we say move from the ignorance to the wisdom. Peace is already veiled by the hesitation. You are angry. I pat you. I say you calm down. So patting on your shoulder does not go into your head. You recognize. You recognize the presence of the peace and calmness is already there. So what happens? Your veiling nature of the mind drops. That veil, that hiding, the mind is hiding the peace is already gone. So when we say asato ma satgamaya, I told you before also, the Shanti mantra, if you even understand a single Shanti mantra, it is done. You have done yoga. You have reached to that state. So when we say asat means unreal, is not the absence of the real. Are you getting it? False is not the absence of the real. Simply the presence of the real is not known to me. It is present. I told you, I gave an example of this remote. On Saturday's session, we need to understand. So, for that understanding, my impurities of the mind should not be there. The mind should be purified. It should not be distracted. So, I live in a higher awareness and attention. The chain of the thoughts that I follow, what the teacher is talking about, you follow the chain of the thoughts and you discover happiness is your essential nature. On Saturdays, Mondays, and Thursdays session, we purify the mind. We go in a different direction. Both have the same goal. This is what the master is talking about. This master is the craziest master I have found. The more I study, the more I feel internally that you are here and now. You are already in peace. So if you contemplate and reflect the third line says, Mrityurmamritangamaya, moving from mortality to immortality. So it does not mean that, I have a fear of the death and the anxiety and the duality and a conflict. So I have to create a sense of immortality, then I could realize that I'm immortal. No, it is hidden behind the ignorance, false notion that I die. I never die. I'm always there. I just gave an example. We'll go deeper into. So now come to the very technical aspect of this. Technical means that it directly hits our mind. So ignorance is not the absence of knowledge. In formal education, ignorance, we talk about illiteracy. I know German, no, I don't know it. So I'm ignorant of German. That is one way to understand. But in Eastern wisdom, no. That ignorance is not the absence of real self. It is already present. It is a lack of knowledge. I'm going slowly. You see how much supra-intellectual understanding. Why I say supra-intellectual understanding? I told you before a couple of times that the journey of the Eastern wisdom is applies 200% reasoning. Science only applies 100% reasoning. 200%. And that is why we need an awareness and attention to follow the chain of the thoughts. Why I said so, ignorance. Ignorance is two types. One is the lack of presence, and other is lack of presence. Other is hidden. I left the smartphone at home. Absence. Smartphone is already within my pocket. It is obscured and veiled by my ignorance. And I found it. Sometime I have an Android phone, so I connect it to the car to go there. And then I come back home and then I say, oh, I left my phone in the car. It is not the absence, it is the presence is there. What happened to my mind? Why I forget it? That forgetfulness is what we say the ignorance is. So when I forget, I have a big ego. I am stressed. So I identify with the stress, I identify with the delusion, and then I say, I don't know the real self. We will go back to the last session and then we will pay attention to it. Take an example. A child is unable to see the sun due to the dark clouds in the sky. So when you ask the child if the sun exists, the child says no. Are you understanding? You have to immediately apply to the real self. The child says no, not realizing the sun's light allows the child to see the clouds. Are you getting it? Not realizing that it is only the sun's light allows the child to see the dark cloud. And still I deny the existence of the sun. This type of a delusion is ignorance. We are dealing with this type of ignorance. We are not dealing with that type of ignorance. I know and I don't know. I don't know German, for example. I'm not dealing with that. I'm a real self. Do I know it? No, I don't know it. Who says I don't know it? It is the same real self is saying that I don't know it. I'm conscious of it. I'm conscious of it. The person, this is what is the ignorance we have been talking. It is so easy. Why don't you say it directly? We should have finished our session in one session. Do it. Now I'm saying it. Now do it and see what happens. If you can reach there. Why the masters have said, purify the mind, you have so many things, remove the delusion. That is the process. That is the process. If anyone says this is quantum, quanta means, a very minute quanta, even subtler than the atom. And you say this is solid, I don't see anything like quanta. Unless you go through the entire physics, you enter into the quantum physics, then you understand. That is what the Eastern wisdom is going through. So understand again, pay attention, remember this, repeat in your head, and you will see the change. Repeat this in your head and become aware. What you have to repeat? There are two types of absence or ignorance according to Eastern wisdom. Two types of absence or ignorance, whether I say absence or ignorance. For us, it is the same thing. Absence due to something not present. I'm outside, I left my smartphone at my home. So its absence is simply due to not being there with me. An absence due to something else concealing its presence. And sometimes it happens, the phone is there with me and the phone fell down into the car inside. And I said, oh, I left it at home. And then I remember, no, it is already there. I told you an example of remote, hidden. It is present there. The phone is present, but obscured or veiled. This is, we are talking of this kind of an ignorance. So, in order to develop a kind of a faith and a clarity, we have to purify the mind. Our mind should not be distracted. We should live into that awareness in order to recognize that I am the real self when, here and now. What practice? No practice. I'm opposing my own statement on Mondays and Thursdays. Your practice creates another veil. The moment you start practicing, your mind says, oh, I will achieve the real self in future, but it is already present here. So Saturday's session are only for the highest level of a seeker. We have to contemplate and reflect. So there is a positive ignorance and there is a negative ignorance. We can understand for the sake of understanding. There's a positive ignorance and there is a negative ignorance. Positive ignorance, your real self is already present there. It is hidden by some layer of ignorance. Maybe delusion, maybe ego, maybe pain, anything. Negative ignorance means that it is not present there. We are not talking of it is not present there. Take an example of light and darkness. Darkness, light is absent. Finished. Darkness is a negative entity. It is simply defined as the absence of light, not a tangible phenomena itself. But the positive entities represent the presence of something concrete and real. It is present always. It cannot be undone. Asatoma asatgamaya. Real self cannot be undone. But we cannot express in other way. We say, lead me from the false to the real. Oh, so I have to undertake a journey. So what I have to do a lot of breathing, do a lot of chanting every day. I did it for 20 years, so at least you should do it for 10 years. No, here, this doesn't apply. This doesn't apply. My master used to give an example, a house you have never opened for 20 years and full of darkness. So do you want to throw the darkness out of the home to see the light? You switch on the light. And it is here and now. What we switch on? We switch on to our stress, we switch on to anxiety, we switch on to duality. You don't understand how stressful I am. God has given me too much of stress. And we forget. This statement is hiding the real self. I have an extreme headache. That's why I'm not attending this session. I've already given you example. So I know that. Very good. Continue to live in headache. Who says you? So the moment you said, I have extreme headache, the real self is already there. Your mind is obsessed with the headache, and that's why you don't recognize it. Let us summarize this point again. Ignorance is an active hiding force. Ignorance in Eastern wisdom is an active veiling force. It is hiding, active through the mind. It conceals the knowledge of the self, even though the self is eternally and self revealing. It is self revealing. Here and now. You need not to do anything. So again, I'm making our mind understand there are two types of absence: lack of presence and active veiling. Ignorance is here, is the active hiding. I forget. There is a sense of forgetfulness. That is why the Buddha says mindfulness. He defined the mindfulness. You'll be surprised that seventh of the eighth Four Noble Path, uh, in Pali language, it is known as Samyak Smriti, the right remembering, the self remembering is the way to be into the state of mindfulness. What is right memory? Right? That memory never fades away. What is that memory? Memory in the mind of the real self. That I'm the real self. Self-revealing. I use the word self-revealing. We should understand self-revealing. I will remind you, I have used a couple of metaphors. Self-revealing means that self illuminates itself by its very presence. That is the meaning of the self-revealing. Another way, light is on. So that light makes me aware of the computer, you all, and also the same light is making me aware of the light itself. That is self-revealing. So real self is always self-revealing. It does not depend on the mind. It does not depend on on the the sense organ. It demands a lot of contemplation. With a follow the chain of the thoughts, and the time comes when the chain of the thought stops, and you are already there. That is what is known as awakening. I say you go to that room and find out who is there. And you enter into the room, it is totally dark room. Pay attention. It is totally dark room. You come back and I ask you, who is there? No one is there. Who is saying that no one is there? You were there. You don't need a light to reveal the real self. It is the consciousness reveals. Because I was there and I saw no one is there. So I'm reporting it. You don't need sense organ, you don't need a mind. That is self-revealing. Tell me if this logic is wrong. Self-revealing. Real self is self-revealing all the time. And it is revealing peace and happiness. It is always revealing joy and calmness. It is always revealing that sense of wisdom. Did you understand? I tell you, go into the room, find out who is there. You go, the room is totally dark, or even if the room is full of light. Just let us see. And you report to me that no one is there. Who is saying that no one is there? You were there. So it is not the light, that outer light that revealed that no one is there. It is your real self revealed that no one is there, but you were there who is reporting, and that you is the real self. It is independent of the body, it is independent of the mind, it is independent of all the thoughts. That is the meaning of self-revealing. Means the self illuminates itself. What this means? Self knows the self by the self. Now go to the definition of the mindfulness or meditation. What we say, the meditation means transcending the mind. This is the meaning of transcending the mind. You can transcend the mind anywhere. I have a lot of pain during the practice of meditation. You are already lost. Are you understanding? You are already lost. So that is why we say we need a purification of the mind. So at least first you should not only understand, you should experience that I'm not the body, I'm not the breath, I'm not the mind, I'm not the thought, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the delusion, I'm not the ego. And then you are there. So that much of preparation is required to realize the real self is self revealing. And then I know no external source is required at all. Self is being the source of its own consciousness. Mind is not the source of the consciousness. How do you know that? In deep sleep, mind is not there. In delusion, mind is not there. Mind follows in a different track. I have to think and contemplate a lot, and I don't have a time to contemplate. So you have a time to contemplate about your headache. You have a time to contemplate about your anxiety. You have a time to contemplate about your delusion. You have a lot of time. Don't tell me you don't have a time. The moment you are in a waking state, you have the time. You are driving, you have the time. You're talking to someone, you have the time. Why? It is timeless. You have to simply recognize that self is present, expressed by the mind in talking. Self is present, expressed to the mind as a driving. It is always present. When you recognize it is self revealing, it is always present, that state is known as the awakening state. Why we say awakening? Once you transcend the waking state, it is irreversible process. It cannot be reversed. Once you get a feel of it, it cannot be reversed. Waking can move into the dreaming and the sleeping state. That is why we say it is an awakening state. Don't get upset, it's very easy. Everything is very easy. So that is in the last time, in the last session, this master, uh, this the last verse, he says that when an awakened person asks, "What do you understand about your real self?" and the ignorant person says, "I don't know what you are talking about. It does not exist. As far as I am concerned, to my knowledge, it is not there." Now, see, it is not there. How much overstretching in the language without being aware who is talking? And then the awakened guy starts thinking to himself, that is strange. I ask him about himself, and yet he says he does not know himself. As if I asked him about some faraway place. You are already here and now. Do you know about real self? And the ignorant says, I don't know anything about real self as the real self is too far from me. It is because of that we have to purify the mind. You are already present here and now. So then there's awakened guy. Master says, Master uses the word wise and the ignorant. This text. So the wise man says, of course, this is very strange. Why you say that it does not exist as far as I am concerned? To my knowledge, it is not there. It is only because of the consciousness I have all the experiences, I have the expression that I do not know the real self, and yet I say that I don't know the real self. I'm trying to use the language which is easy to be understood. I'm translating, I'm just giving a different expression. What more proof is needed to confirm the existence of ignorance? This is what the ignorance is. I'm living in ignorance when I say I don't know myself. When I say I'm in stress, I'm in ignorance. I'm upset. If you are feeling bored, you are in ignorance. What do you understand by the real self? The reply comes forth. I'm using the same language as the master. The master is saying that reply comes forth is rather shocking. The ignorant man blinks and replies, I don't know what you are talking about. It does not exist as far as I'm concerned. To my knowledge, it is not there. Do you see that? It is here and now. You need not to do any practice. This is what happens to, this is how, now we are understanding how the ignorance with the two factors. Concealing factor is one, I don't know what you are talking about. As far as I know, I am the body. This is projection. So ignorance has two factors, concealing and projection. I never contemplated and reflected what I am saying, is it right or not? I am the body, is it false or real? I have never reflected on it. It has created a sense of the habit because I am the body. So I go far with all the experiences of the body, and all the experiences of the body is me and mine, and hence I am continue to live in ignorance. And ignorance causes the suffering, it causes the delusion, it causes the ego. Do you know about real self is not the same question. Do you know the Himalayas? Are you understanding? I'm not asking you where is the Himalayas. You can say, no, I don't know. I have heard about it. So for me, the real self is just like I don't know the Himalayas. And that is what the ignorance is. Ignorance can only be removed by knowledge. You cannot remove it by any practice. I told you a couple of times, what's your name? Okay, first do the practice and then you will know my name. Not possible. If I ask Terry, what's your name? And Terry says, okay, first do 100 breathing and then you will come to know my name. No, it is not possible. Ignorance can only be removed by knowledge. Asatoma Satagamaya. Now, do you see the deeper understanding and the essence of the Shanti mantra? You pick up any Shanti mantra, it takes you there. Did you grasp the understanding that it is self revealing? The mind is not required. There is a story in another text. This master gives another story that there is a lamp which is full of light, is veiled and hidden by one box, second box, and the third box. Pay attention. That is the way we have to contemplate and reflect. So now it is located in a dark room. The master says, go there and bring that lamp to me. I'm just answering your doubt how long this intellectual understanding, how long we have to continue thinking, contemplating, and reflect. The time comes, it is dropped by itself. So now this guy goes into the dark room. He says the room is dark. So I need a torch. So he has a torch. Now the entire dark room is lit. So the master has already given a hint, it's a big box. So he opens the big box, then the second layer, then the third layer, and now the torch is not required because that lamp is already showing the light. You don't need the mind. You don't need any language. Now you have found that light. That is the meaning of self revealing. Anytime it is self revealing, whether you are in a dark room, whether you are walking in a street, whether you are driving, it is self revealing. And that nature of the self revealing is the real self, is the pure consciousness. That is why we say the self illuminates itself by itself, like the sun. Mind is obsessed with the false logic, and that hides the real self. And we say, no, nothing is there, even though it is self revealing. So, first it hides itself, then it has a doubt, then you have a delusion, then we build, we project, and that projection we create an ego, and that ego lives in the mind and it keeps hiding the real self. We forget about it. And the projection is there. So that is why we have been talking about ignorance has two factors. One is the concealing factor. So I have to simply become aware. When I say I don't know the real self, who is saying? I become aware of who is saying that and where it is taking me to. So it takes me to the identification with the body and the mind, and body and the mind always suffers. It has one problem or the other all the time. So then it forgets. That is why the Buddha says meditation is nothing but the self remembering. Self remembering. There is nothing more than that. So remember two types of absence. One absence, my mind says real self is absent. still it is present. That is mean it is hiding. And one absent, obviously it is absent. It is not there. Darkness is there, so it is the absence of the light. We all are awakened already, but we don't know it. That is the problem. So the teacher perceives we all are one reality. The seeker perceives we are multiple reality. The same situation, the same condition, the same level of awareness. We are talking, we are communicating with the same consciousness. Everything is the same, nothing is different, except the difference between the ignorance and the wisdom. And that ignorance is not the absence, it is the presence of the real self hidden, concealed. That is why we always say, you are real self, everyone is real self. There is hardly any difference between the teacher and the seeker. Let us see. Close your eyes. Eyes are closed. We need not to even close our eyes, but yes, continue the journey. Let the time come. We will see that even with eyes open, we do nothing. Eyes are closed. You heard it? Who heard it? Mind. So mind closed the eyes. Mind followed the action, but how the mind follows that action part because of the consciousness above the mind. I'm just asking you today to see the subjective side of it. All the instructions, and you are aware of the subjective reality. Or you can say you are just aware of awareness, if I use that word. That confuses, that's why I'm not using that. Fact is that that is the real fact. Any thought is coming, so who is aware of that thought? So when your mind turns opposite direction, not to the object means the thought, feeling, sensation, body, mind, intellect, ego, but it turns to who is the knower, who is the seer. And that seer is the self revealing. You don't understand, I didn't sleep last night. That is only a thought. Who is the knower of this thought? Now I have itching in the body. Who is the knower of the itching? Doer cannot be done. Knower cannot be known. So here we follow this process. When we guide meditation, we follow this process, my friends. Why? Because it is limitation of the mind. Because we have to follow all the instructions through the mind. That is why any thought comes, yes, thought is there. Very good. Who is the knower of the thought? And your mind starts looking inside, in the opposite direction, not in the direction of the world, but in the opposite direction. Our great master Patanjali says it is pratyak chetna, inward moving mind. And that too is simply an awareness. Inward moving mind means that now the mind is recognizing The presence which is hidden, which was hidden, now it is revealed. I gave an example of, I gave an example of the remote was hidden by my left palm, right palm. It is presence is there because mind does not recognize that presence, and that is why we have to purify the mind. We have to purify the mind. In a way, now you should be sure, even if your mind says you are doing something, check it. You're not doing anything. Sometimes we say, yes, at least you say that I'm doing nothing, so I believe you, but I know I'm doing something. Being carefree. Do you need to do anything when you are carefree? That means you are free from all the cares. Who cares? The mind. How it cares? By the desire, anxiety, pain. It is happening in the mind, but who is the knower? I told you, knower is not known, doer is not done. Can I live into that awareness? Finished. Journey is done. Carefree simply means that a recognition that knower is not known. What it means, what is known? I am in anxiety, I don't know my real self, all crazy thoughts are there. That is the known. But the knower is different from the known. If the knower is not different from the known, if the doer is not different from the done, you cannot perform any action. You cannot know anything. That's a fundamental principle of knowledge. You need not worry about the stillness in the body, it happens by itself. You need not to worry about any thoughts, you are carefree. It only demands a constant contemplation and reflection until you hit that point, until you open the box and you find the lamp has a light. I don't need a torch. Now ask yourself, is carefree is a practice? Answer is no. Second part, being carefree related to the mind. Mind says I'm into anxiety, so I have to get rid of it. So when I get rid of it, I'll become carefree. I have a pain in the body, so it is an association. I identify myself with the body. I'm the mind, I'm the body, and we are lost. The real self is constantly present. and still I don't know it. Asatu ma satyagamaya. Let the knowledge lead me from the false to the real. We have already understood what is false. Ignorance hides that real self. It is already there. That consciousness, which is not affected, dictated, influenced by anything in the world, any pain, any problem, any worry, any pleasure, being carefree. There is another word. It is self revealing. When you are carefree, the real self reveals itself. Why it does not reveal itself? We have ignorance, we have impurities, we have projections, and all these impurities, projections are guided by the delusion, supported by the I thought in the intellect. I'm not an I thought. How come? Who knows the I thought? I thought is not self revealing. In deep sleep, I don't have an I thought, but the consciousness is self revealing. If there is no ignorance, where is the question of concealing the real self hiding? And that is why we say, move from ignorance to wisdom. So you are clear about the moment I say ignorance, from now your intellect, your mind becomes aware that it is hiding. It is not the absence. So when it is not the absence, I need not to create anything. I need not to produce anything. What that means? I need to be an extraordinary aware where I see. Now I put the same question to you. Do you know your real self? And accept whatever comes from the mind. I don't know. Follow that I don't know. Who says I don't know? It means I'm already aware of myself. That says I don't know. then what happens? The mind stops thinking. So, one master also says there is another way. When we are a seeker, we ask, who am I? And then we follow the threads of the thought process, filter out what is known by the knower, we reach to the knower. Even saying reaching to the knower is a wrong statement. We are already there. Or you can ask, first, you understand the entire thought process in today's lesson, and then you ask, do, as if someone is asking you, do you know real self? No doubt we may have some experiences, but our question remains the same. We have a vision of colors and vision of images, and we are fully aware that none of these vision and colors is me. They are known, I told you. Knower is different from the known. Mm. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your awareness on the right hand, your awareness on the left hand. Lift your Buddha palms, place it on your eyes. Open the eyes inside the palms, know your experiences. Bring the hands down. We'll share our experiences because it tells us in what way and how much we have contemplated, reflected, and understood. And if the process continues, we definitely reach there. How are you, Stephen?
Good. Thank you very much. I think it was last week you made the statement that the real self is present here and now, and that has stayed with me all week long. and I've spent this enormous amount of time contemplating and reflecting and trying to put this all together. And I went back to the way I handle pretty much everything, and that's breaking everything down into smaller pieces rather than looking at it as the whole. And what I got to this week was that the real self is always there, which we've discussed, and hence the present, here and now. And the ignorance represents or a goal or a job of the mind to veil the real self. So with that is like, okay, how do I recognize that and how do I overcome that? And so it really brought me back to the ego, the desire, contemplation and reflection to create this awareness. And it became so simple this week that I could, to quantify it, I've spent more time in peace than I have in ignorance. So therefore, I'm accepting the real self as it being here, present here and now. And then the idea of just taking every situation and being able to instantly become aware of it, contemplate and reflect and measure it. Is that my ego? Is that my desire? Is that ignorance? Or is this my real self? And then I started to go, okay, this is easy when you're by yourself. Now, how do you do it with everyone else around you? Because they just don't get it. And I started recognizing that most people either live in the past or they live in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I keep living today. So I'm starting to irritate a lot of people when they say, well, what are we having for dinner? I go, I don't know. I haven't had breakfast yet. So let me deal with this moment. And that really just generalizes the whole thing. And I'm really being able to measure these very simple situations against the principles that you've taught us for me to sit and say, nope, that's not my real self. I'm negating that and say goodbye. So I know there's a lot there, but thank you.
Keep on contemplating and reflecting. You have really, no doubt, you have contemplated throughout the week. And we are only covered the verse number 27. We have another 50 verses. Once we complete all those verses, we are already there. We are still there. Beautiful explanation. Thank you, Stephen. How are you, David and Jerry?
Good morning. Thank you. It was a really great lesson, and then consequently, the meditation is that my awareness was revealing or taking off or exposing the boxes around the light.
Yeah.
And I got to the light very quickly, and once I got there, it was the only thing I had awareness was two things. One, your voice, and two, my heavy body. And I think I was sort of,
Yeah.
because my body was heavy. So I was extremely to the core, I guess, to my real self, I felt.
Beautiful, beautiful. The experiences, all experiences takes place in the mind. So maybe that the body has variety of changes taking place and it will result into variety of experiences. As Stephen was saying, the past and the future worries, they will continue to go. These all experiences are totally different from the pure consciousness. That is what you are referring to. So we have to, there is always a separation. So once we live into that separation, we can say that I'm totally absorbed into that. Wonderful, beautiful. How are you, Jerry?
Sir, I'm good, thank you. The mind just went to consciousness, and that consciousness and the mind went to kind of seeing all of us. And I don't know, I haven't heard maybe everybody's stories, but the consciousness went to like, I'm not being hit by a car every day.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
consciousness knows I was hit by a car, but I'm not hit every day by a car. And then consciousness knows that the body might have a disease, but consciousness knows that it doesn't have a disease. And then consciousness knows and sees delusion and lying or someone screaming at you, but consciousness isn't affected by that. It just sees it.
Yes, yes.
And so in consciousness, there isn't anything we need to do.
Beautiful. You know what Jerry is saying, that it is the mind says that I am in stress, I am hit by the car. So that I am is hit by the car has to do with the body, mind, intellect, I thought. But still the consciousness remains independent entity. That is the understanding. So once we have that understanding, we are already settled into that state. We are already settled into that. But question again, you see how the mind cheats us. When I said the mind, we are already settled into that state, there is no question of settling. We are of the nature of the real self. But the language has lot of limitations. So in the future verses, we will go and find out those limitations of the verses that causes the ignorance and drops it. Beautiful. That is beautiful. I'm so delighted. So how are you, Brandy?
I'm good, thanks. My experience in the meditation was I would be like carefree for a while and then the mind would rev up. But I guess I understand you saying it was happening in the mind. It was easy to move pretty quickly back and forth between this state of just carefree sort of nothingness to like recognizing that the mind was like, okay, you've got all this stuff you gotta do. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like the lanes, maybe like which lane are you gonna be in? And so settle back down, and stay there for a while, rev back up, settle back down.
It's beautiful when you say being carefree. Carefree, I am just aware. It is not carefree now, but I'm always carefree. So when I'm always carefree, the mind says in the past, I'm always carefree, nothing to do with the past and present and future. I am. That is all. Beautiful. How are you, Dennis?
Fine, thank you. Saturday sessions definitely reboot the mind into a different mode of thinking and gives the mind a different direction. In the meditation, I was contemplating how this ignorance comes about. And I remember how you said that this mind is a reflective medium for the consciousness. So when this reflection happens in the mind, then the knower and the known are born. This duality is created.
Yes.
And this is how the ignorance comes about. Is
Yes.
this a right way of thinking?
Yes. Yes. Consciousness is like a sun, and the reflected medium is like a mind. So the sunlight falls on that reflected medium, which is a mirror, and then there is a reflected light. That reflected light is delusion, anxiety, problem, worries, etc., etc., etc. It's a long list. There are three things. That is how we can understand through the language. Sun, real self. Mirror, reflected medium. That is the mind. So the consciousness reflects there, and then when it is reflected, then you have a reflected light. What is that reflected light? I have a lot of stress today. My honey did not listen to me. Why is she? So this is the reflected consciousness. These are the reflected thought. So that is why, we started with a metaphor. We started with the first metaphor. So you have picked up that metaphor. That's really good. And the more and more we intensify your awareness, we find that state. Beautiful. Everyone I'm so delighted. How are you, Terry? Where is your sleep?
I don't know. I can't. the mind kept going to the 3 boxes.
Yeah, that's good.
And I wanted to, when you take off the last box and you have the lamp, I mean, I know it's a metaphor, but I wanted to take, I don't know, I just kept wanting to take away the lamp and just have light.
Just
But then
have the light.
but that would still be a metaphor, because light is just a metaphor for the real self. It isn't what it is.
Yes.
Thought, well, if the light were all pervading, you couldn't get it to stay inside of the box. So I couldn't stop playing with that idea.
Play with that, because that will bring you very near to the real self. But now answer one question and it will become clear. She has a very intense reflection. She says metaphor is after all a metaphor. That is why it cannot 100% equate to what we are talking about. That is why it is known as a metaphor. So
Right.
metaphor is a pointer. Metaphor cannot exactly is 100% to the real self. If I can, through the language, through the metaphor, I can point the real self, then there is no need of metaphor. She has a point and I have an answer. so you see that you have to see, oh, duck, my shirt is like of a color of a duck. So this shirt is not a duck. So that metaphor of a duck is not a shirt. It is equivalent, apparently, pointing to the truth. So every time when you see the lamp, you leave the lamp and you pick up the light and awareness of that light. Consciousness is also the light, which is all pervading. Yes, your contemplation is wonderful. How are you? That is good. How are you? We have yet to cover, we have covered only 27th verses. So how are you, Ashok?
Thank you, sir. I'm peace and cool, sir, and meditation was good. And
Very
sir,
good.
knower and known, what is the difference between, we have to merge the knower and known in the real self, or what?
No, you need not to merge. You simply recognize, I know you. So you are the known, I am the knower.
Okay.
When you say, I know you, when you say, I know you, you are the knower, I am the known.
And where the real self?
Behind it.
Okay. So real
Well,
self is third one, you can say.
yes, in the beginning, we have to separate knower and the known. Why we separate the knower and the known? That is the reflected medium and the reflected consciousness. All the thoughts are the known, all the objects are the known, and the mind is the knower. And then we go a step further that, oh, I know the mind also. So at present, mind is the knower, and who is the knower of the mind? It is the consciousness, and that is the real self.
So we should move towards the consciousness, you can say.
Who should move?
Okay. That's the real self.
so, so we are going slowly.
Fine. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you. I'm happy Terry is okay. There was a lot of flood in the Brooklyn, but everything is okay. She is safe.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Namaste, everyone.
You.